Okay, fantastic. So we are now recording. Welcome everybody to week 4 of the Tinkerbell contributors meeting. Doesn't look like we have any new faces on this particular week. One other thing is I put code of conduct into the contributors meeting. We don't have one at this time, but it would be good to ensure that as per these meetings, we adhere to some level of behavior that is inclusive and welcoming for everybody. So that is possibly something that we need to think about introducing. I just wanted to make sure that it was in there. We've only got a few topics for discussion this week. I will kick it off. Gianluca.
There is a long-standing but small proposal about this. How do we communicate BC break to the outside? Obviously, like we expect not a lot of BC break, but we already have a few like proposals or pull requests that are in some way BC break. So I wrote there how a possibility about how we can communicate that to the outside. And short version is like applying a tag across all the projects. And I'm not really focused on how each project should build a changelog or communicate their BC break. I'm not really, it's not for that. But if every project at least use a label, we can extract those BC breaks and combine them in the sandbox every time we tag it for now until we get to a more sophisticated release cycle. I also place a note about having a migration path chapter in the BC break label when a BC break is open, so we can in the pull request itself people can figure out how to migrate from where they are to like the new version, and that's it. So if you can have a look at that and see, it's open for a week or maybe more, so it would be good to get it closed so we can maybe move the JSON proposal over as well.
Okay, excellent. Next on the list, we have a sandbox, Gianluca.
That's it. Yeah, that's almost the news. It's a new repo that contains pinned version of Tinkerbell components. I was happy to read an article from one of our community member that is running or is trying to run Tinkerbell in. I think he's successfully running.
Yep.
Run Tinkerbell on OVH, and he used the sandbox to install the provisioner on bare metal. So that's a cool side effect that we already saw. And there are a bunch of issues that are open. So if you want to grab one, they are there. As soon as a bunch of them will be closed, I think we can tag v010 for the sandbox itself and move with a release cycle from there. And Mara and Marcus are helping me with the Terraform documentation. So as soon as that's done, I will move the Tinkerbell setup guide from Tink to Sandbox. So we will have all the setup in the Sandbox repository, and that's it.
Excellent. So this basically is one of the milestones for the work we've been doing this quarter, which has been, this kind of ticks 2 boxes, one of which is the moving of the deployment code, setup.sh, generate environment, all of those sorts of things to their own repository. And this is kind of the beginning of tagged versions of Tinkerbell. In the past, a lot of things were basically, were based on Docker images tagged with latest, which means that regarding whenever you do a Docker pull, that's basically the version that you're going to get, which made it very hard for us to know what people were doing, what they were running. We would ask for versioning information and just be given a bunch of random SHAs to kind of look at, and we didn't really have a good way of pinning that SHA to commits and knowing where people were. So this is basically a first good step at ensuring that the community is running a set of components of Tinkerbell that we understand and we can help them debug as they're maybe hitting issues or they're trying to do things with Tinkerbell.
Yeah. Also, one thing is about the current. I mean, as soon as I will move the Tink Terraform to Sandbox, Tink will only have a copy of the Vagrant setup. Ideally, that's how I see developer like developing Tink. You do Vagrant tab and you go from there. I think every developer has its own way, so I presume that at some point the deployment folder will go away or will diverge or will change. Really, it's based on like developer like needs. I'm not really sure. Right now, I don't feel to remove the directory because I think the developer won't have a way to develop anymore some way. But I mean, I don't personally, I won't really look at that directory anymore that much, let's say. But I don't have an alternative for developers yet. I mean, I think everybody has its own one, but yeah, that's it.
Cool. Chitrabasu.
Hey Dan, hey, hi everybody.
Hello.
Yeah, so from my end, I wanted to present about this plug and play model of the centralized logging. And just so I have completed the POC where I can actually add another logging driver within the same code implementation and see how it is working. So I was looking forward if I can showcase that and take some feedback from the community.
Sure. If I stop
So should I see?
Yep, if you want to start sharing.
Sure. Okay, are you guys able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is right now the implementation of the RSys log, where you can see that I have configured it with the Docker LFS, where all the means I have added a new change where the logs are created inside the directory of the host name. So here we have the provisioner. So all the logs are now created inside the provisioner directory of the services which are running in the provisioner. So these are the DB, Ting server, Hazel boots, everything. And also these are the log rotation which I have added so that it can be configured. So now moving for the plug and play. So as of now, the RSys has been developed in such a way so that people can actually change the logging driver, change the configuration, and they can actually also change the log server address so that they can aggregate the log at their own required location. So for this part, for showing that how the plug and play can work, I would be using the Fluentd. So I will show you what is the configuration I am using for the Fluentd. So this is means I'm using the TD agent for this part, and here I have just configured the configuration file which would be listening on this port, and it will just fetch up all the logs which would be coming up with this parameter. So this parameter is similar to the one which we are giving for the tag name inside the for the log drivers. So if you can see here, just like we have these four parameters primarily, which define that how the logging would work. So here I have defined the log driver as the Fluentd, the log server address type as the Fluent D address, and this is the right now provisioner, and this is the port on which it would be listening. And this is one of the main parameter which actually is used to create the container which associate this tag. And this is also the same tag which is used in here to actually match up the all the logs which would be pushed to the Fluentd, and it can actually parse it. So now let me take you. So right now everything is configured on for the RSys log. You can see here everything is defined as per the syslog and the configuration is changed as per the RSys configuration. Now I will move all this configuration to Fluentd, and then we can see that how that logging works. The first part is that let me pull down all the Docker containers. Okay, so now all the Docker containers are down. I will start my configuration file. So now I've started the Fluentd service and it is listening on this given port, and it will try to fetch up all the logs which matches this criteria, which is same as our tag name. Now the other part is, let me change the uh, environment variables. So you can see that only the difference here is earlier it was all with the syslog configuration. Now it is with the Fluentd. The server address is different, of course, means the type of definition which is used for the Fluentd is different. So that is why this is the difference in here. And apart from that, the log driver is different. Now I will start the Docker containers. Okay, 1 minute. So I was using the old Docker file. I can also show you how the Docker file is different with the RSys one. So in the Fluentd, the part which we are changing is here is that the logging configuration is changed, and there is some kind of a hard code binding which I have explained earlier, that the key parameter inside the Docker compose actually cannot be created as a variable. So that is why it is necessary that we create separate Docker compose file for RSys or the Fluentd if you want to use. And if you look into the Docker compose file of the RSys, the logging part would have the different kind of the driver name, which is syslog address. So this is the reason why we are creating two separate Docker compose file. The rest of the configuration is same. If we could have found out a way where we can have this as the variable name, then we can actually have had a single Docker compose file. So now my Docker compose file is with the configuration that is used with the Fluentd. So I will start my Docker containers. So you can see now all the logs are now being redirected to the Fluentd service, and it is capturing all the logs in here with the same tag name or the parameter which was given to start the container. Now this is the way where we actually captures the log in the Fluentd. So earlier the implementation where we had the Kibana and Elasticsearch container, so they were just mounted on the top of the Fluentd, and with some additional logic that how the parsing needs to be defined for these logs which we are getting inside the Fluentd service. They can be redirected to the redirected to the Elasticsearch or maybe to the Kibana as per the configuration. So you can see that just by changing the variable environment variables and the Docker compose file, we change the log drivers and the logging aggregation within the Tinkerbell. So I can also show you that how we can get the logs of the Tink worker. So let me just first of all create a template. I have added the hardware now. Now I'm creating the workflow. Now I'm starting the worker. So by the time the worker is booting, we can see the logs inside the Fluentd. The DSCP offer which is being made are being captured inside the Fluent service. It is just about to start. Okay, so the execution of the worker has been started. And you can see now the Tink worker logs are now also redirected to the inside the provisioner. This is the log we have captured from the Tink worker. Inside it, there should also be the log of the worker node. Okay, yeah. So this is the action container.
Yep.
Whose log is also redirected to the Fluentd service. At the end, and there should be a success message also here. So this is the success message that the Tink worker has been completed. So in this way, we have just changed the environment variables and now we are getting all the logs from the Fluentd. And as I said, we can just add a container on the top of the service and we can get all the logs over there.
Excellent.
CV, can we take a look at the compose file again?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Can you open the Docker compose file?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think there should be another way by configuring the thing instead of modifying your Docker compose file or having multiple Docker compose file. There is a way you can configure your default logging driver. It's there on the docs. I'm not sure if you've tried it or not, but maybe it's worth taking a look.
Yeah, I shared a link in the chat
Oh yeah,
that,
yep.
but that's
It's
cool.
there.
That's very
Sorry,
cool.
I didn't
Yeah,
get that. I didn't got your question.
yeah, I think one of the reason, like my comment on your pull request in documentation comes from the fact that from my understanding, I was looking at the daemon configuration and not at I was thinking about the daemon configuration and not at the Docker compose level. So I think if we do it, because I mean, we can assume that like when somebody provision and decide that all the logs has to go somewhere, all the logs has to go in that place. So probably it's just easier to take the direction, to take the Docker daemon direction and configure it. But I mean, the end result is the same, and the result is great. So I can't wait to see it like documented and like getting shared with the community, because that's operationally is crucial. So that's great.
Yeah. Apart from that, the only thing for the this Docker compose file we have it different is this the key, which is the Fluentd address, and in the case of RSys, it is the syslog hyphen address. So that is a kind of a necessity to have separate Docker files because we cannot create an environment variable for this parameter as such.
But
Okay, let's take a look into this because I think you should be
I'm
able
not
to.
able to hear you, Gaurav.
Am I audible? Not audible at all.
Your voice is a bit feeble.
Yeah, audible, Gaurav.
So I don't know how efficient would it be, but I think it should be. We should be able to add that tag thing, right? That is what you are worried about when it comes to RSS launch. I think we should be able to do that within the Docker daemon. I've never tried it myself, but let's explore that thing as well. But overall, as Gianluca said, it's pretty nice work.
Excellent.
Okay. Thanks. I'm giving control over to Dan.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That was fantastic. Very good to see it actually in a form that's demoable as well. So that's really good to see. Let me bring it back to here. Event-driven Tinkerbell, Gurav.
So we did had a small discussion around how we want to take Tinkerbell towards the path of event-driven and stuff. So the whole idea is, as discussed with Gianluca and on the call, that there will be like something which we have, like we have in Kubernetes, we have an API server. Similar way, we will have something like we already have one Team server, which will be like if there's a workflow created, there's a template created, will be generating events, and like your worker will be subscribing or listening to those events, and will be acting accordingly. So I was exploring different areas. I was looking into Kubernetes code, how it handles those events. It uses HCD, and HCD provides you the watching functionality out of the box. So I looked into Postgres because we are using Postgres, and so Postgres also provides you listeners. The problem with Postgres is that it provides a very generic listener. So it's whenever there is a change in Postgres, it will just give you an event, and then we might have to write a wrapper, which will be like, okay, we will need to segregate those events based on the resources that they will be interested to watch in. So that's something that I'll be exploring on tomorrow, and let's see if I can come up with a wrapper which might fit in our use case, and we could continue with Postgres. So if you have any inputs on that, I will take it.
Yeah, I never use Postgres listeners, but even with the TCD, you have to write like your own logic that filters by what the user is watching. So that's almost the same, like kind of the wrapper you spoke about is the same, no matter what you use. So that's good. And yeah, I mean, I know that you wrote a doc that is in Google Drive. We started there because it was easy to collaborate on. But I presume when you are ready, just you can move it to a proposal and we can move from there.
Yeah. So I'm actually waiting for a very tiny kind of POC, and then I'll just push it with GitHub.
I can wait to see a demo.
Sure.
Excellent. And then finally, Marcus with CLI parameters.
Yeah, if I could share screen for a second. Not too much to show, but. Okay, so I was taking advantage of the fact that we already have Viper in Tink to introduce, to use command line parameters and environment variables and a config file as a way to define parameters. And the end result would be not very much diff to get the added functionality of stepping through all three. I think my problem is not understanding what Viper's capabilities are. So they have a lot of documentation on doing something like this. So you start with some Cobra parameters, and then you tell Viper to bind to that Cobra parameter and to also bind to an environment variable. What's great about this is that we'd get easy access to our existing environment variables. We'd get, there's a few places in the code where we're checking to see if a value was, if it was required or not, and we would get required checking for free from the command line. We wouldn't have to worry about it at deeper levels of the code. We get our defaults supplied at a different level than what we're doing now. Like info would be the default is defined here. And then it ends up, and then, you know, we'd be able to do things like code completion, create options for that. And so it ends up looking like this when it works, kind of. And then, you know, registry username and password are required. If you look at the existing parameter spec that we have in the environment variables that we have now, they are a little weird. Like max retry is the environment variable that it wants. And if we're going to ship something like this, maybe it would make more sense to be specific to the task. So like Tink workflow or worker max retry, something like that. So this isn't a PR yet because I'm still trying to work out one of the major kinks in it, which is that I should be able to say worker ID equals 123 or whatever, and then run this, and it should say that worker ID is not required, but it doesn't pick that up. Also, you should be able to put it inside of, I forget what I called it, but inside of a, like a command. I think command is what I use right now based on the existing names, but a YAML or a JSON file for that, and then define that worker ID in there, and it should pull that in. That's not working either. And so what I did was I reached out to the person who's contributed the most to this recently over Slack. We chatted about it a little bit, and there's still some confusion about what the capabilities are or are not supposed to be for Viper. So I offered a simple proof of concept of what I expect it to do, and it doesn't do that yet. So if anybody's familiar with Viper, I posted on our Slack that, you know, I'm looking for any kind of support on that. But expect a PR of this once I figure out how to make it actually work.
Excellent. How did you come across the bug? Sorry, was it?
Oh, I don't know if it's a bug. It's just, it's not well documented feature. So I don't even know if it's supposed to do that. It's the examples show you doing exactly that, but then it doesn't go from CLI to environment variable to config file, which is what I would expect from all the examples. I don't know if that's what it's intended to do.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, that looks good. I look forward to seeing that actually. There's still kind of, as part of the roadmap, we're looking at kind of extending out the CLI more as well. So kind of fixing this ASAP can only be a good thing. So that looks fantastic. And with that, I think that's everything that we had listed as part of the topics for today's call. If nobody has anything else that they want to discuss, so going once, going twice. Okay, excellent. Well, with that, thank you very much, everybody, for joining today's community call. The recording will be uploaded soon and added into the document for everybody else to find. In the coming days, we will be advertising this, I believe, on the Tinkerbell Twitter account as well. We're still kind of wanting to slowly get more and more people involved as opposed to having a stampede causing kind of issues, flood and things like that. So we're going to keep slowly kind of getting this into the conscience of people who are interested in bare metal. And with all of that, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And I look forward to speaking to you all next week. Cool.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.